space, and that's how we arrived at this selection of works here today. And the exhibition is a selection of works, really celebrates 38 years of living and working in this space since 1974. And with us today is Mr. Michael Corris, who's the chair and professor of art at Meadows School in Dallas. Michael is an artist and a curator, has exhibited widely and at MoMA and with me here, has written for various publications, and has provided a very substantial account of David's work in a catalog from 2005, which is here today. And we talked a little bit prior to the talk about how we could start this.
Well, we didn't want to talk too much.
Too much.
Some level of spontaneity constructed, when the work is constructed, and the kind of surface that he makes, and why he makes this surface, and what it means when you look at it as a thing in itself, rather than just a ground on which all of these fantastic events are occurring. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, one thing, when I first read your text, announcing the secret monochrome, I thought, in fact, it was a brilliant way to make some ground to try to talk about 40 years of diverse work. And in a way, I think of the monochrome ground as, and the time in which to actually have it happen, as just the time in which I could be thinking about what I'm actually going to do. So it's a kind of time and space in which to have something happen. And so in that sense, it's quite elastic.
How much, in terms of the work, how much of it is fully planned out? Is it always completely planned out?
It's almost never completely planned out. But the germ of the idea has to already be there. I have to be excited about a subject to get out of there to actually do it. I mean, as everyone knows, we have a lot of ideas. Only certain ones make it to the surface.
I think maybe we could start with a particular painting, which is in this selection, which is Small, which is in the studio over there, which is a painting from 1984. And there's a time in your work which hasn't been addressed in this exhibition. There's a time in the 70s of work which you were reticent to show when you talked about the selection.
Well, we had no space, certainly we might have, but I may as well make a plug for a show about to open next Saturday at Magda's Gallery, Postmasters. I will be showing a work from 1972, so hopefully some of you will get a chance to see that. Well, it was a kind of a sharp break. The wonderful idea that there was a rupture. It's almost a modernist trope that even if you don't have a break, you work to say that you did have it. And I basically came to a kind of end of the body. They didn't seem to allow for development. They didn't allow for furtherance of other things that I was interested in. But chiefly, it was work that was, the earlier work that stopped they stopped because they couldn't really grow anymore. They were very process-oriented.
This kind of reminds me of, the relationship between those paintings and the subsequent body of work of Gerhard Richter. For a moment, I don't want to talk about the morphological similarities and issues of priority, but something that Richter said in an interview with Nick Sirota when he was asked, why are you doing the squeegee paintings? What were you thinking about, in fact, when you started your painting? said, I just want to put an end to it. And that kind of statement of negation is something that I think about a lot in terms of your work, in terms of overlay and sort of putting the brakes on things, but also a way of continuing to say no to something while opening up another area of freedom. Does that make
That makes a lot of sense, yeah, and even at the physical level, that's what I did. I basically am always covering up and, effacing, but knowing that no effacement ever completely covers anything.
something to hide here?
Everything. Those so-called squeegee paintings of mine were repeated layers of massive strokes. And basically the painting would happen until I saw something as if I'd never seen before in terms of the color relationship. And so knowing at the same time that some of the underlying layers will always reveal themselves. So, I mean, throughout the work, an artist tries to account for what it is that he can carry forward and what it is that he can jettison. And every artist wants to be able to bring forward and have in the discussion what he considers positive. And one thing that I consider positive is I always wanted to reveal the means of production. And that is something that I learned or just got by osmosis as one of the chief tenets of modernism.
So that's kind of like an inheritance that you felt.
I'm very much a legatee of, incredible contributions. I'm merely a small clog in this continuum.
But, Pavel and I were having a discussion in the studio earlier about the sensibility, the difference in sensibility between the current generation of artists, or even the past 10 years, and our generation. I think we could share that.
Oh, you're a guest.
But Pavel, would you want to speak?
Yeah, we were talking especially about Be Small. We were talking about this moment of taking that so ubiquitously reproduced installation shot of the 1915 exhibition, of Malevich's exhibition, and using it as a template for a Kenny painting, and using that hollowing out.
It's not that it was ubiquitous, it's canonical. It announced itself in each case when you say it in the book as if it were the originary moment of abstraction, of abstraction. And for such reason, I used it. But it connects up with earlier work where I was using plane geometry in the sense that why did I not draw an arc-like biomorphic shape? Well, I wanted to use a vocabulary that the mind already knows. This is a direct quote from Jessica Jones. What you may be alluding to is a particular consciousness of one's forebears, which is to say a particular consciousness of history. Well, that's been, my illness. I cannot not have that.
But
constant attempt to connect.
But not to do yourself an injustice, the way you wear it is so light. And I think that was a point that we were sort of playing with, the difference that's often just.
I hope it's like that.
Well, there's a lot of unity there, wouldn't you agree? In the way you approach some of these subjects.
It's not something that the person would say about themselves. I'm happy to accept that you find it humorous, but I'm not about to say, oh, it's about being witty.
I don't think that's kind of not exactly what the reading we're talking about. But we're talking about especially the piece which is around the corner, which is the line where you're reclining in a chair. It's one of Pollock's number 32.
32,
yeah.
One of my favorites.
And we're talking about this very, just like Lucy P. Small, this hollowing out of that ideological content which was in that 1915 exhibition, and just also pose with which you take, the locked eyes on the viewer, that humor is one entrance point into the work, but there's also this very cool approach to the passions and emotions of previous generations, or your contemporaries. And that's, I think, what we were talking about in the studies.
Yeah. Sometimes when we talk, I feel that the biggest dilemma you have is making a choice.
There are two fruits out there.
And the choices, I mean, let's talk a little bit more about what those choices are, what they mean to you. Those choices. In terms of the legacy that you inherited as an artist, in terms of the situation you found yourself in when you started painting in I guess the mid-60s and late 60s, and it came to public attention. And then what happened in the 70s is the kind of choice where to go. I think the works that we were just discussing
Well,
were emblems
yeah.
of
Well,
that.
just to think back about the beginning is, I felt incredibly unschooled as a painter because I never studied art, really. It was all from illustrations and books. Something Alloy said to me years ago, he said, you young artists have it really great. You can work through on your own pace the Holy Scripture. You don't have to be in the academy learning from the past. You could do your impressionism one day, move right to Fauvism, right through Cubism, and you have it. So
Which is precisely what Malevich and his generation
did as well.
Very quickly.
Yes. And I did that. And quick study, you know. But there's just too much to do. And to answer Pavel's point is Malevich. It was just crying out, you know, I almost feel an involuntary sense, you know, when some image or some discourse kind of wheedles its way into my mind and I can't shake it, you know, it takes over. But in terms of the Malevich thing, I found myself moving more and more into looking just at, say, 20th constructivism, European art, which, God forbid, Don Judd has already told us, is debates about composition, you know, breaking up parts, and not asserting the holism of things. But moreover, I was concerned that I was being drawn too much towards old Europe. And I really wanted to bring myself back to my home base, which is something Michael has picked up on. So it's right. It's, hence, that cold groove, little suprematist physics.
Where do you feel your home is?
Well, it's here. This has been a very productive year. But I don't know. There's some show called Heimat right now. It seems to be something in every culture, every person. It's so great.
Yes, because you've got the references to early modernism and what we would identify as a heroic period. I mean, we could mythologize it all we want.
And I probably
have.
have. I probably have.
But there was this incredible idea of cosmopolitanism that emerges there. And maybe in contrast to now, where particularly the series of works that you did that related to your memories of your original house in China, and that as a trope to kind of find a ground.
Yeah, that particular work, I'm sorry that none of this here. Once again, my hand was forced. I had to do a show in Beijing, and I had previously shown in some biennales with my usual paintings referencing modernism and modern architecture, and it just fell completely on blind eyes and ears. And I said, okay, if I have to do a show in China, I better at least attempt to meet the audience halfway. And in fact, the story of the loss of my home was traumatic in my life. People who came to that show said to me, David, you told us the story 40 years ago. Gary Bauer, he said, this was the same story you've been telling. You finally got to do it. So that's what happened. And of course, oftentimes I would begin very flat-footedly and almost dumb. And then to my surprise, the subject ends up being more interesting. And then I begin to pick up on nuances that might not have been there in the beginning. And this is really one of the great joys of learning. You begin and you know where you're going, and then the horizon opens up. So a lot of stillbirths, right? Attempts at something and it just falls flat. But then, you know, some subjects, they have a life of their own.
This idea, I think it's quite interesting to think of an artist finding an approach or a language geared towards a certain particular project, like we're saying in China, and that exhibition in 2006. I think it was.
I started the project because the show was planned in 2006. I really worked the show.
But I'm curious to this moment where you find a certain language that you think might work, where you find a certain image, and I'd like to kind of draw attention to the image that's pinned on the fridge, which is a kind of new discovery for you, which I think is a really exciting one that you might want to mention.
Yes. Is my friend Christian here? Is he still being the doorman?
No, he came up.
Okay. Where's Christian? Well, Christian, my friend Christian Hu is an architect and architectural historian and author. He's working on a book on Philip Johnson and various relations to artists, and it's, of course, a subject that's been close to my heart and work. He came up with this image of the boardroom up at MoMA. It doesn't exist anymore because it was the boardroom designed by Philip Johnson for the second iteration of the museum. We're now on the fourth one. That's the trustees' room, and what's important about it in terms of architectural history is this is postmodernism avant-garde. For example, the pilasters do not go to the floor. And he gave me this image, and I said, oh my God, this juggles my memory. You know, I remember having to go into that room to stretch up a 16.5-foot long painting because John Elderfield, who was a young curator at that time, as I was a young artist at that time, had asked for that painting to be presented to the board for acquisition. And so I said, oh, this is perfect, this is perfect. I'm going to make a painting using that image, silk screen probably. That's a question you'll have on my silk screen. We'll come to that. But I will probably silk screen the boardroom. The only image is that degraded photo. So using it in its degraded state, which I often do, I actually like that because it gives it a particular date. It's not yesterday, it's whenever. I'm going to collage or insert my 16.5-foot painting, which was refused by the acquisitions committee. So I get to say, to call the painting rejected by the board, by the acquisitions committee. You know, something like that. Yes. So I don't know. This could become a whole loop of work. Usually it's begin with one.
And do we want to make a parallel to this Philip Johnson reference here?
We can, yes.
Also, you talk about the process of printing the images onto it.
Well, there is the whole question question of why do I use silk screen and photographic paper? Well, you know, I don't know how to paint from life. I never learned to do it. I began as an abstract artist. All I know is color and planes and straight edge. So I need, when I do need like an overt, concrete image of something that is a vision in the world, I usually use something realistic as a and in this case, that image of me sitting in the glass house became very productive for a whole group of work referencing Philip Johnson, the glass house, and by way of that, modern architecture in New Canaan, modern architecture in the world, what happened. I happened to visit and gave the camera to another visitor and said, do you mind taking my picture? One shot, no motor drive, just one shot. I happened to do that. And I ended up using that image in many instances. And then I also happen to know this image on the right, which is from the very historical moment of Warhol's visit to Glass House. He went there many times, but this particular photographer happened to have taken it on that day. It's in the book, and don't spread too much about me having done this, because we may have copyright issues. But in this case, I rather wanted to pose that notion of the yawning gap between myself and this other. I'm, as I said before, a good student. And it's not a notion of difference, like very important in using this word. Also, I wanted to really foreground that idea of difference. Asian, white, hetero, gay, all those things. And a lot of what I do is just to try to put into play what, the floating signifier, the play, the free play of the signifier happens in painting. So that's the attempt there.
It's hard to get away from all the associations we have with screen print on canvas.
I don't mind the direct reference to Warhol, who is, the one who made it possible.
And even beyond that, because the kinds of images that you use are very particular types. There's generally a figure in them, or the evidence of habitation, even in your most recent series with that. So in a way, they function not quite as the iconic representation of pure form of architecture or art, but something else. They kind of imply a show movement. Is that?
Well, the first instance of me using the silk screen was in fact from a Yiddish image. I wanted to put the chair,
Which you did later.
which I did at about the same time. But I didn't want to have to paint the chair. So I actually had a silk screen made, and my good friend Brand X came and he screen